Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Welcome back to this week's podcast episode. I just did an Ask Me Anything on Instagram, like, hey, what questions do you have about anything? It could be life, it could be stepmom related, it could be relationship related, it could be whatever it is. So we got a few questions, so let's go ahead and dive into those. So first things first, how do you handle stepmom burnout? And here's the thing. If you are burning out as a stepmom, there's probably things that you've taken on that you could step back from. There are expectations maybe that need to be managed here. And I did a podcast episode on this. I'll go ahead and link it in the show notes so you can listen to it. But it's about how your expectations are setting you up for failure. And when I burn out as a stepmom, it's because I've said yes to too many things. It's because I feel like I need to prove myself. It's because I feel like I need to do all the things. And if I say no, they're going to hate me. Or if I say no, it's because I'm a bad stepmom. Or if I say no, it's because of something else that somebody else thinks, right? That's really what if I distill it down, that's what it is. I'm saying no because there's a fear of what everyone else is going to think or whatever their perception of me is going to be. That's when I burn out, if I really am honest with you. It's not because I don't want to do all of those things, because sometimes I do want to do all of those things, but I also know that I don't have the capacity to do them. So I can't say no because, again, what is everyone else going to think? Everyone is going to have an opinion on this. Everyone is going to have an opinion on what you do or what you don't do. Everyone's going to have an opinion if you sit at your house and do nothing all day. They're going to have an opinion if you go out and run a marathon. They're going to have an opinion if you're a working mom, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a great stepmom, if you're a mediocre stepmom, if you go all in, if you're not all in, if you whatever it is, anything that you do. If your favorite color is blue, somebody's going to have an opinion. If your favorite color is red, somebody's going to have an opinion. No matter what you do, people are going to have an opinion. So why don't you just do what you want to do, or don't do what you don't want to do, and call it a day. I would much rather you love me for who I am than hate me for somebody that I'm not, because I lived my life like that. And then I got to the age where I was like, you know what, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like people pleasing, and I'm not going to do that. And so then I swung the pendulum like a complete 180, and that didn't go so well either, because then I was just burning bridges. And honestly, I would say, hey, I've got the torch and the gasoline. I will absolutely just torch this bridge. And then I would do it. And then I had to sometimes go back and repair them. Nothing like a steaming hot slice of humble pie. Yikes. Definitely don't recommend that. But when stepmom burnout happens for me, like I said, it's because I've taken on too much. In my own personal life, my own wants, needs, and desires, I've taken on too much as a wife, as a stepmom, as a partner, as a mom, just as a person, and I don't have enough white space in my calendar. To be 100% honest with you, I am not one of those people that's here, look, I'm wearing my busy badge of honor today. I don't like the busy thing, so I don't do that. I'm not one of those people that's oh, I'm so busy, I can't do this. Are there times in my life where we are busy? Yes. I don't like that, so I intentionally a lot more time for things than need be, because what I don't want to do is say, okay, this is only going to take me an hour, and then it ends up taking me 3 hours or whatever. So stepmom burnout, when that's happening, here's what I do. I'm going to go ahead and clear whatever it is that I need to do, or I'm going to delegate. Okay, tonight I'm not doing bedtime. Tonight I'm not doing laundry. Today, I'm not cleaning the house. Today, I'm going to take some time and just chill the hell out. And I think it's really hard for us as women to just sometimes sit and feel like we're not being productive, and the anxiety that bubbles up because you aren't producing something, you aren't doing something. There's always dishes to be done. There's always laundry to be done. There's always a floor to be swept, mopped, vacuumed, whatever, things to be tidied, right? But when do we stop doing that? And when do you start just taking time for yourself to just be. Maybe it's to read that book. Maybe it's to, scroll for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Set a timer. That is my thing for you. Set a timer if you're going to scroll for a bit. But whatever thing that you used to do or things that you used to do before you became a stepmom, please go back and start doing them. If it was you regularly met your friends for dinner or coffee or drinks or workout classes, or you went for runs, or you did your own workout class, or whatever it was, whatever you did pre-stepmom life, go back and do that. Whatever you did pre-mom life, go back and do those things. Find out who that pre-whatever person was. Like for me, pre-mom, pre-stepmom things, I traveled. I had my own schedule. I did whatever the hell I wanted, whenever the hell I wanted. And it was a real fast shock when I found out that, oh wait, not only do I need to take into consideration my partner at the time, now husband, his schedule, but then also like there's a custody schedule that I need to do, and like maybe we're not going to be able to do things that we want to do because we have the kids or we don't have the kids or whatever the case may be. So just navigating, what am I doing right now? What do I want to do right now? And then being honest, like, is this a short-term thing? Like, am I just going to be suffering, so to speak, for like a short-term thing, or is this going to be a long-term thing? And again, it goes back to managing those expectations. If you know what season of life you're in, that really helps. So if you've got young stepkids, let's say like under the age of 7, you know that it can be really hard, right? Like right now, my daughter is 5, and toddlers or like little kids and teens really aren't that different. They live like in their own world of like everything is revolving around me. Like, hey mom, watch this. Hey mom, come look at this. Mom, where are you? Mom, teens are the same way. Like they're like in their own thing. Maybe they're not like, hey, come watch me, but like they're in their own world. Like, hey, what am I going to do today? What am I going to, are we going to hang out with my friends? Am I going to be online playing video games with them? Like, what's my sports schedule? All of the things. They're not thinking about you. Same thing with little kids. Like they're not really thinking about you. Like they're in their own world. And it's a lot, like the overstimulation of like the noise and all of the things. It's a lot. And so if you've got young stepkids, just know that this is a phase. This is a passing phase that you're going to go through where they're like super needy. They need to be around, like all of the things. Like just, maybe they can't serve their own dinner. Maybe they can't, clean up after themselves. Maybe they need help in the shower, whatever it is. This too shall pass. That's what I want to say to you. This too shall pass. And then they'll move on to like middle-aged kid years, if you will, like 8 to let's say 11. And sometimes they can be really annoying because they just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, like little kids. They just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, what are we doing here? Every stage has different things. So just figure out like where you are. And then there's the teen years. Like now they can drive and now they can like go out and do whatever it is. And then you've got to manage like, okay, what's a good curfew? Like what's not a good curfew? Like all of the things, right? On top of like screen time and chores and blah, blah, blah. House expectations, my friend. House expectations. That really helps with burnout too. And I talk about this a lot. I really hammer this in like with coaching clients. Like if you come to me as a stepmom and we're in coaching, depending on your situation, depending on the scenario that we're talking about, one of the very first things I'm going to ask you is, do you have house expectations? If not, I highly recommend them. And here's why. I was the adult in my house and I was confused about what we could or couldn't do, or what the kids could or couldn't do. Or, if my husband and I were on the same page, like, what are we doing here? Everyone was like, I don't know what's happening. And if I don't know what's happening as the adult, damn sure the kids don't know what's happening as kids, right? And they're trying to figure it out and like trying to play by the rules of the game that happened to be changing on whatever day of the week it was. They happened to change like when I was here. Like sometimes they would be able to get away with things if I wasn't here, but then if I was here, you know the drill, right? Like you're a stepmom, you get it. So handling stepmom burnout, find a community that you can go to and just be like, hey guys, this is what's happening. Just like word vomit everything. This is what's happening. What the hell do I do? And if you're looking for a community, good news to you, I have a community. It's called the Stepmom Side Community, kind of like the Stepmom Side podcast, but the Stepmom Side Community for stepmoms, so you can go. There's other stepmoms in there that get it. They know what you're going through. They understand. They've been in your shoes. I'm in there. I respond to comments. I respond to posts. I host office hours. You can come in and talk to me face to face in real time. Like, hey, Alicia, this is going on in my situation. Help. What do I do? And I'll help you navigate it. But find an outlet for yourself, because what I see more often than not, and I did this too, but what I see more often than not is stepmoms go all in on like the stepmom thing. And, you know, like I mentioned, they forget like who they were like pre-stepmom life. And so then, you know, you're however far down the road and you're like, what the hell is happening? Like, what happened to my life? I feel like I'm a shell of who I used to be. How did we get here? And it's like this slow, gradual process until you see it, and then you can't unsee it. And then you're like, I don't know how to get out of it, because it's weird to all of a sudden like pull out of everything. Not what we're going to do, but like just pull out of everything and just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And trying to undo some of the things that you have been doing. So when you're feeling burnt out, that is your body. That is you as a person saying to you as a person, like, hey, I'm struggling here. Now is not the time for perseverance. Now is not the time that we're just going to push through and we're going to like fake it till we make it. No, now is the time that we're going to like deep breaths and we're going to take a step back and we're going to do things that we want to do. We need to nurture ourselves. We need to care for ourselves and really just check in and be like, okay, what is happening? What's going on in my life? Like take a real life like assessment, evaluation of what is going on? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? Is it the kids? Is it the ex? Is it my partner? Sometimes it is. Is it the in-laws? What is it? Is it work? Is it my expectations are really high? I'm guilty of that. What is happening here? Like, why am I burning out? And is this a cycle? Because if it is, we need to get off. We need to get off that roller coaster. We need to get off that spin wheel of like, we know that this is going to happen. And you've heard me say this before, but everything is cyclical in the stepmom world. So those arguments or those stressors or those whatever it is that you're experiencing that bother you, they're going to keep coming back. Promise. Ask me how I know. They're going to keep coming back. And here's why. They're going to keep coming back until you learn how to handle them. They're going to keep coming back until you learn how to handle them. If you're multitasking, please come back to me and listen to this. Whatever stressors you have going on in your stepfamily world are going to keep coming back until you learn how to navigate them, until you learn how to handle them, until you learn whatever it is you need to learn from that stressor. They're just going to keep coming back. It's cyclical. Promise. Another question I got was, do I ever get tired of talking about stepmom stuff? I suffer from burnout at times. It's kind of like the same question, right? And I personally don't get, words are hard today. I personally don't get tired of talking about stepmom stuff because I have lived it. And I think it's Brene Brown that says, like, talk about something from the place of a scar and not a wound. So I've done a lot of personal work. And so I can talk to you about stepmom stressors or stepmom struggles and things that have or haven't gone well. And it doesn't like make me get worked up or it doesn't affect me anymore. I can be like, sometimes I even laugh like, oh my God, can you believe like how ridiculous I was? I can't even believe that I thought that X, Y, and Z was appropriate. Or I can't believe that I said this, or I can't believe I sent that email, or I sent that text, or I said those things to my husband. Like sometimes I'm like, I had a lot of chutzpah to just like say whatever it was that I wanted to say, right? But here's what sometimes I do struggle with when it comes to stepmom stuff. I know my story. I know what I struggled with. I know how that made me feel. I know what I know. I can create content on that, but I don't want to create content on necessarily just my life. Yes, parts of my struggles are relatable. Parts of my stepmom stuff are you're like, oh my gosh, yes. But when I do like an Ask Me Anything poll on Instagram, or, you know, when I'm messaging you in my DMs, it's another question I get is like, is this automated or is it you that's responding? It's me. I'm the only one that does my DMs. I'll send you a voice note. That's totally my style. But I'm the one that does my DMs. And so if I am messaging you, or we're messaging back and forth about whatever because you've responded to a story or whatever the case may be, and I'm like, hey, what topics do you want me to cover? That's a legit question, because that's my struggle. Like, what are you struggling with? Because I'm like, okay, well, I've already talked about this, and I've already talked about that, and I've already talked about this. But if you're like, hey, Alicia, can you talk to me about struggling with stepmom burnout, or struggling with the in-laws, or my partner because of this, or the ex because of this, or the kids because of that, perfect. I can create content around that. Otherwise, I'm like, okay, what could I tell you about this week? What can I help you with this week? So that, as a stepmom coach, is part of my struggle. Like, what do you want to know about? What do you want me to talk about? I want this platform. I want, when you come to see my stuff or you listen to the podcast, for it to be beneficial for you. I'm not making this for me. I'm making it for you. I want you to have the support. I want you to get the help that you need. Help me help you, essentially. Help me help you. Next question. How do we balance what we hope for the kids and what they want versus the reality of their mom? So how do we balance what we hope for the kids and what they want versus the reality of their mom? So maybe what you want and what the kids want is vastly different than what their mom is actually going to do. This one sucks. So I just want to say to you, if you're in the situation where the other house doesn't show up for the kids as much as they could or should or would, I'm sorry. That is a really tough situation to be in. It does suck. But I will tell you this, it goes back to managing expectations. So if you are hoping that the mom would do this or could do this or should do this, there's a good chance that you know that she's not going to do this. So we know this, right? Knowledge is power. Absolutely 100% full stop, especially in a step-family situation. Knowledge is power. If you know that the mom or the other house typically doesn't do X, Y, and Z, they're probably not going to do X, Y, and Z. Manage your expectations. So if the kids come to you and they say, oh, you know what, Alicia, I'm feeling bummed because my mom said that she would do this, or, she said that she wouldn't do that and she did, or whatever the case may be, the best thing for you to do for them is to be a sounding board and to be there for them. Now is not the time that we bash their mom or bash the other house and say, well, duh, of course, I totally saw that. Or, yeah, it's because your mom sucks. More chances than not, you're not going to say those things, but I can guarantee you it's all over your face. I can guarantee you that it's in your tonality of how you speak to them. You might not come out and say those words, but your body language says it. Your voice says it. Your face says it. Maybe you got the problem I've got where sometimes my words don't match the face that I have. So just be a sounding board for them. Be there. Be that soft place for them to land. Be the place where they can come and just be open with you. Be honest with their feelings. And I will tell you this. It is exhausting being the bigger person. It is so damn hard to take hit after hit after hit, to be that soft landing place time and time and time and time and time and time again. It's like, how many times do we have to do this? Like, it's like ad nauseum, right? But here's the thing. At some point, your stepkids are going to grow up and they are going to know, they're going to see, they're going to remember who did what. What's Maya Angelou says, or had said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Something like that, right? But you know the sentiment. Like, you will never forget how somebody makes you feel. So if your stepkids come to you and maybe you really, I think this is really hard too. Maybe you really struggle with the ex. Like, you really have a hard time with her for whatever reason. And there's a bunch of them. But your stepkids come and say something to you about it, or they want to open up about it, and you are like in the throes of like struggling with them, like with the ex, and maybe you like can't take that capacity on. Here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is say, hey, you know what? Right now is not a good time for me to talk. Can we circle back in like 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever? Because again, if you are struggling with the ex at the same time they're struggling with the ex, you both are going to spiral. And your face, again, might not match whatever's coming out of your mouth. So just be mindful of like where you are, like check in with yourself, like, hey, where am I? How am I doing? What's going on? And if you are still struggling with like, here's what I'm hoping and I'm wishing and wanting, or here's what the kids are hoping, wishing, wanting the ex to do and she's not doing it, it's going to be a long, long battle or like a lot of turmoil in your relationship. Like, again, that should, would, could. Don't get caught up in the should, would, coulds, because more chances than not, they're not going to come in. But what you can do is if you see the same, again, everything is cyclical. So if you see the same things happening over and over again, let's say the mom was supposed to come and get them, but they didn't. And then like the next time she was supposed to come and get them, but she didn't. And the next time she's supposed to come and get them and she doesn't, right? So this is like a cyclical battle or a cyclical stressor. So your stepkid could come to you and say, hey, you know what? I'm really bummed out that she didn't come and get us again. And say, I totally understand. Like, this is the third time that this has happened. I'm really sorry. You don't have to be like, your mom is a jerk, your mom is an idiot, your mom, all of these things. But just be there for them. And you can also ask critical thinking questions. If the other house is bashing you, Alicia's an idiot because she, whatever, or I don't like Alicia because whatever it may be. It's probably cloaked with like insecurity or jealousy or whatever the case is. But you can ask questions, and I tell coaching clients this too. Ask critical thinking questions. Oh, that's interesting. Like, why would your mom say that? Like, if she's made up a lie, like, what do you think? You don't have to go in and like bash the other person to like prove your point, even though sometimes in the moment it feels really good to do that. Please don't do it. Even though it feels really good to do, please don't do it. Because again, the kids will remember who was there, who did what, who said what. They will look back on their childhood with an adult view. So please don't say something stupid about their mom, right? And they might be struggling with their mom and that relationship right now, but they might not always be struggling with their mom in that relationship. So please be mindful of what you're saying. Curiosity is going to get you so much further in this. Another question is spousal support while the mom has a live-in boyfriend? Okay. I'm not a legal lawyer or like I don't hand out legal advice. Having said that, it totally depends on like where you are, like what province you're in, what state you're in, what country you're in, what the divorce decree says. Like, there's so many things at play here, right? So it matters if in the divorce decree or in your state or wherever you are, does spousal support continue while she has a boyfriend? Does it end when they're married? Are there any like stipulations around that? That would be my first question. And then, depending on what it is, typically alimony is kind of expensive, but you could go back to court. And depending on how much longer the kids are in the house, this is something that matters, because are you going to go and spend however much it's going to cost you to go through court? Let's say it's going to cost you $30,000 to go to court, where maybe the kids are in the house for another 10 years and your alimony is $1,000 a month. Okay, well, is it worth it? Like, what's the offset here, right? And I would say if you can go through like friend of the court, if you can go through mediation, if you can keep it out of court, awesome. But there's probably a very, very good chance that is not possible because you're here talking to me. You're asking me, right? So whatever court plan you have in place, whatever lawyer plan you have in place, that's the avenue that I would take. Again, sorry, this isn't like super helpful because I'm like, well, it depends on where you are. It depends on your state. It depends on your province, your country, like your province, country, whatever. Yeah, but I totally 100% completely understand the frustration of like, what the hell? Like, we're paying alimony and you have somebody living there, somebody that's got a job, that's helping out. Like, what? You don't need the money that I totally get it. Especially if you're paying child support as well. Woo! It's a hot topic, right? But I understand. So I would just say, figure out what rules are applicable, like where you are in the world. I have a podcast. So this is another question. I have a podcast about me that it's lies and defamation and slander. What should I do? This is so frustrating, right? Because I feel like things that are on the internet, people just typically tend to believe is real or it's truthful or whatever. Like, just take it at face value. I don't really know how much of the podcast is, or like what the podcast is or what's being said in there. Depending on the degree of it, like how bad it is. If it's trivial things, I would let it go. If they are big allegations, like maybe there's like a child abuse allegation, or maybe now based on this podcast, like you're a drug addict, or like character things like that, it might be worth pursuing legal things. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't hand out advice like that, but I'm going to say, like, initially, if I were to find a podcast that the ex did that was like this, my feelings would be hurt. I would be caught up in the emotions. I would be on fire, like literally on fire, like touching all the walls and like torching everything. But let's settle this for a second. Like, let's cool off. Let's go jump in the shower and just like breathe. Woosa. What should I do? Like, let's think logically about this. Okay, how bad is what they're saying? Is any of it true? Like, is some of it true? Is any of it true? Is none of it true? And how bad is it? And like, what do you want to do, right? Like, you could go to them, hey, there's a podcast, or you could go to the podcast host. Like, if I had a guest on here that said something bad about you, you could come to me and be like, hey, Alicia, you had somebody on here and they were talking about me and they said X, Y, and Z and none of that's true. I'd be like, oh, yikes. Let's work this out. Let's figure it out. You could go to the other house, or you could go to whoever it was that was saying those things and have a conversation with them if possible, like a cease and desist. I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I'm not super helpful with this because I'm like, not a legal person. My favorite question is, how do you handle in-laws who still openly love and discuss the ex? So let me ask you that again. So how do you handle in-laws who still openly love and discuss the ex? I think it's podcast number 3. I think that's it. I'm going to link it. No, that's not right. But I will link the podcast episode in the show notes. So if you've got in-laws that still openly love and discuss the ex, sending you all the love, girlfriend, like sending you all the love. Here's the thing though. My husband and his ex were together for a really long time. And so I struggled with this too because my in-laws were really close with the ex and they still maintained a really, really, really close relationship. And I was like, well, there's not enough room for both of us here. What the hell are we doing? And so it really got us off on the wrong foot. And it took me a long time to like get through my head that, okay, everyone in this situation, everyone in this dynamic has been in a relationship. They've been friendly. They've been a family for a long, long time. And for me just to expect that overnight that was going to end is completely unrealistic. And especially with our dynamic, because my in-laws did a lot of the communicating with the ex about coming over or seeing the kids or sporting events or whatever the case may be. And so then all of a sudden for that to end and for it to be off on my husband or for me to take over, which absolutely I should not have, and I didn't, which did or didn't help. But if they still openly love and talk about the ex, I would ask, my first question is how long have you and your partner been together? And what dynamic is at play? Like, what was the dynamic of their previous relationship? And what is the dynamic now? And just know that the longer you guys are together means the more time that they are not together. And it's really hard to just like jump ship. And I'm not being like, oh, well, it's just going to work out and it's totally going to be fine. But give everyone time to settle into this new whatever. And here's a really big disconnect. If you are in a relationship with somebody and their parents still maintain a really good relationship with the ex and they love them and they're like, oh my gosh, they're the best thing since sliced bread. However, that ex is making your life a living hell. It's really hard for you to understand why those people would continue to have a relationship with the ex. Here's the thing. The ex to them is a completely different person than how the ex is to you. So, kind of how you have like different ways that you show up in different friendships. Like maybe you've got colleagues and you show up in that relationship in one way, where you've got like college friends and you show up in that relationship another way, and then you've got mom friends and you show up in that relationship a different way, the version of the ex that you get is not the version of the ex that they get. And they might be continuing their relationship with the ex because they want to maintain contact with their grandkids, or whatever the case may be. There's still a relationship there, and it super sucks. But you can't tell somebody who they can or can't be friends with. What you can do is you can limit your access, or you can limit that person's access to you. Or you can tell your partner, hey, when this comes up, I feel X, Y, and Z. Can you help me navigate this? Can you help me redirect the conversation? Can we walk away from the conversation? Can you put your arm around me? Can you hold me? Can you, just squeeze my hand like, hey, I love you and I know this sucks, or whatever code it is that you guys need to have. It sucks. And then there's going to come a day where they're going to call you her name. And you're going to be like, what the fuck? Like, no, I'm not her. Like, we're not doing this. Like, this is BS. Like, I can't stand the woman, right? Like, there's going to be all these things, and there's going to be stages of just, you're going to go through these stages. And my husband and I were talking about it sometime last year. And in the beginning, when you, like, specifically, like, being called the ex's name, I was furious. I was super mad. Like, I wanted to create, like, my own path, and here I felt like I was just being slotted in. So I was really annoyed. And then the second stage I was at was just like, oh my gosh, like, whatever, I don't even care. Like, this is dumb. And then the third stage I got at was just like, really? Like, this is what we're doing? Like, are you serious? But now I say something. Like, if it comes up, if it happens, I think I've been called the ex's name maybe 5 times. But now I just say something, and now I make it funny, because again, what I say doesn't always match like what's coming out of my mouth, or like my face doesn't always match what's coming out of my mouth. And so now I'll say something like, oh, that was the old one. This is the new one. Or, oh, wrong person. I'm Alicia. And I just try to make it funny, because if something annoys me, I'm not a good faker. I don't pretend very well. So I try to be funny to like kind of soften the blow. But yeah, the in-laws who still openly love and discuss the ex is a really, really hard one. Give everyone a little bit of grace to kind of navigate that. And if you have like super specific questions or super specific like situations that you're trying to navigate, send me a DM. Like, I know who this is, so I can reach out to you too, but like send me a DM and ask me, or pop into the community and be like, hey guys, this happened this weekend, or hey, this happened tonight. We were at my in-laws' house and blah, blah, blah. How would you handle it? I will. And if you tag me, I will absolutely respond. If you don't tag me, I'm absolutely going to see it. But don't struggle through any of these stressors alone. So we covered how to handle stepmom burnout. Do I ever get tired of talking about stepmom stuff, because I suffer from burnout sometimes, this writer. And going back to that, like, please, if you have topics that you want me to cover, below this in the show notes, and if you're on my website, below this, there's a place where you can put in topics that you want me to cover. And you can always send me a message on Instagram, like, hey, Alicia, I listened to podcast episode number 46. I want you to cover X, Y, and Z. I'll absolutely do it. How do we balance what we hope for the kids and what they want versus the reality of the mom? Spousal support while the mom has a live-in boyfriend. I have a podcast about me that is lies, defamation, and slander. What should I do? And then in-laws who openly love and discuss the ex. Don't suffer through any of these on your own. Like, come hop into the community, ask questions, hop into office hours. I host them every Wednesday afternoon or evening, or morning, depending on where in the world you are. But yeah, come in and chat with me. I will have a conversation like this. But that's all for this week. I thank you so much for listening to this. Like, I love doing podcasts. I love having questions to like answer, because again, it goes back to like, hey, these are things that I'm struggling with. Can you do a podcast episode about them? Can you touch on them briefly? Like, this is the kind of support that I want. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for following along. If you're in the community, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Like, I love getting to see you on Wednesdays. But have a great day, and I will chat with you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crosco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.